Good morning. We'll get started in about 10 seconds. Good morning and welcome to LACO's LCAP training. We want to thank you for joining us this morning. Today is day 2 of our 2-part LCAP training. We want to thank you for coming back to our workshop. Today we will be continuing the information about the 25-26 LCAP. I'm Adrienne Balcazar, and I would like to introduce the LCAP State and Federal Programs Unit. Today, joining us is Helen Choi,
Good morning, everyone.
Laurel Estrada,
Morning.
Augustine Garcia,
Good morning, everyone.
Rachel Garcia,
Good morning, everyone.
Jeannie Keith,
Good morning.
and Anita Lomeli.
Salutations, everyone.
I want to introduce our support staff, April Grease.
Good morning.
Great. And today we have a full agenda and we have many presenters and guests. So we're very happy. We want to welcome the Accountability and Data Literacy Unit, Evan Bartelheim and Dr. Hilary Weissman. You want to say hello?
Good morning.
All right.
Good morning, everyone.
Great. And we are also happy to introduce to you the representatives from the Business Advisory Services. We have Kathy Connell and Andrew Surendranath that is going to be presenting and walking you through the fiscal components today of the LCAP.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Great, wonderful. To access today's presentation, we ask you to click on the link in the chat. This will take you directly to the slides. If you use the link at the top of the slide, this will take you to our Canvas page, and the presentation can be accessed through the icon as shown here, as well as the agenda and resources that we share. We ask you to place your questions in the chat box, and we will answer any simple questions if we can. We will follow up with the written responses in a Q&A that will be emailed to you. We are also recording today's training and will post this on our webpage. For those of you who were not able to join us on day 1, which was Tuesday, the 28th, we went over the required components of the 25-26 LCAP template and how to approach your LCAP in year 2 of the 3-year cycle. Our training took a different approach this year in day 1. We covered the sections of the 25-26 LCAP template, but through the lens of continuous improvement in the second year of your 3-year plan. So we provided the links to CDE's Tuesday at 2 webinar series to provide support to those of you who are new to the development of the LCAP. And so therefore you can utilize those slides to get the instructions and all those details that are within the instructions. And so now you can find day 1's video and PowerPoint presentation posted on our Canvas page that, again, I shared on the slide 6, that link. It'll take you to the presentation. So for today's workshop, we want to talk about the metrics table tool, the local indicators, and this will be shared by the accountability and data literacy team. Then we'll cover the equity multiplier for those districts and charters that have that are in equity multiplier for the charters and those districts that have schools that have been identified to receive equity multiplier funds. Then we'll move on to the action tables presented by the Business Advisory Services and also the budget overview for parents. Then we'll end with the LCAP development and approval process. Then we will continue with, for everyone, the LCAP submission to if you are in LA County. And then we'll end there for those that are not utilizing the eLCAP system template for their LCAP. And for those that are, we are going to continue with an overview of for those that use the ELCAP system. And so now I will turn it over to Evan, who will take us on a deeper look at key metrics.
Thank you, Adrian, and good morning, everyone. On day one, my colleagues from the LCAP unit discussed the role of the measures and outcomes in the LCAP, including the fact that LEAs must specify which metrics are used to measure outcomes for such things as LEA-wide actions and equity multiplier goals. Today, we're going to take a deeper look at some of the specific LCAP metrics, as well as the local indicators, as Adrian mentioned. So go on to the next slide, please. As a quick refresher, this graphic provides an overview of the metrics that are correlated to the 8 state priority areas required in the LCAP, and they're organized around the conditions for learning, engagement, and student outcomes to support whole child development. LEAs, of course, are required to address each of the 8 priorities, and these reflect the minimal required metrics for your LCAP. Next slide, please. As this is the second year of your 3-year LCAP, this year should be primarily updating your metrics that you identified in last year's plan. However, should you find the need to modify a metric or add additional metrics, know that this is allowable, so long as these modifications are noted in the plan itself, in the goal analysis. That said, we want to reinforce a key message that we shared last year related to the selection of data sources for your LCAP's required metrics, as well as those used to inform your local indicators. That message is, do not duplicate your efforts. When it makes sense, we always recommend streamlining your data collection efforts by choosing measures that both support the local indicators and can be representative metrics in your LCAP. This will ensure that the work that goes into identifying data, measures, and tools to track local indicators, as well as the evaluation and reflection that you undertake, can be used most effectively to inform the development of your LCAP. Next slide. To assist LEAs in identifying data sources, we've developed the LCAP required metrics inventory tool. And for each of the required metrics, we've identified the specific education code reference, the available data sources such as the dashboard, DataQuest, or CalPADS reports, as well as special considerations such as the difference in how measures are calculated between different data sources. We update this tool regularly. In fact, we just finished updating it the other day, so it's as current as you could get. And you might want to just bookmark this link and have it on hand, because it'll always be the same link that we'll be updating to. Now let's talk about some of the required metrics that we get asked about most often. I'll start with everybody's favorite, priority 1, measuring appropriately assigned and fully credentialed teachers. It's been noted by the CDE that the source used in the LCAP to reflect the degree to which an LEA's teachers are appropriately assigned and fully credentialed for their subject and their students remains a local decision. As we'll discuss shortly, though, LEAs must also share their teacher assignment monitoring outcome, or the TAMO data, with their governing board as part of their priority 1 local indicator, which you present at the adoption of the LCAP. So why duplicate your efforts, right? The problem, as most of you probably know, is that the annual release of the most recent TAMO data has yet to align with the timeline for LCAP adoption. So you create this bit of a problem. So as an alternative, some LEAs have chosen to use local sources such as assignment monitoring results that are reflected through, say, a CalSAS report that's available through the HR credential staff, and this is totally fine. However, for clarity, if you do a local indicator, we strongly encourage you to identify how this differs from the federal definitions that are included in the TAMO data, because you might see significantly different results, and that could cause some confusion. If your LEA does use the TAMO data in your LCAP, you'll need to use the data that is currently available at the time of your board's adoption. And at this point, unless something changes, likely that will still be the 22-23 data. However, you can discuss with your LCAP coordinator options for updating this data after its release, of more current data is released. And this may be viewed as a simple technical correction, possibly moving forward. So make sure you talk to your LCAP coordinator about that. Next slide. So there are some other tricky metrics. Fortunately, as we go on, these tricky metrics have become less and less of a problem, but I'll just note a few. So the first is the completers of both CTE pathway and A through G requirements. For those of you who serve grades 9 through 12, this is a required metric. This has largely been resolved since the state now produces for the second year in a row on the dashboard additional reports. And nifty little report called the MET-UC CSU Requirements and CTE Pathway Completion Report, and it looks at both elements individually and then both of them together. So you get your answer right there on the dashboard. Secondly, we've got the reclassification rate, and I will note that this has been an ongoing question that we've asked, and I know our LEAs continue to ask, because the last time this was updated was 2022 data. So the CDE has specified that they are not under a legislative requirement to update this data, and so it doesn't take priority. And so while they intend to produce this report eventually, it is not being produced currently, and it probably will not be produced in time for your LCAP, but just in case. But so you know, our guide that we include does have directions as to how to generate this using your CalPADS reports. And it's accurate. We vetted it with the CDE, and it will give you an accurate reclassification rate. It just requires downloading a couple of reports. I actually ran it the other day for our LACO Ed programs, and it works just fine. Attendance rate, I've kind of wavered on this one. Attendance rate is hopefully identified through your local SIS, but you can also use your P2 reports. That also is a measure of attendance. A lot of LEAs are using that. Finally, there is an option running CalPADS reports. I will say, you know, there are people who believe in kind of a purity test that would use chronic absenteeism data, and absenteeism and attendance are not exactly the same, but it is one way you can generate it, and they do use the same parameters. So that's another option, again, outlined in our required metrics report. And then finally, the middle school dropout rate. This used to be produced on DataQuest, but it's been many years since it's produced. But that can actually be produced using CalPADS reports. It's pretty straightforward. So again, refer to our data guide. Next slide, please. Local education agencies must report on specific student groups in their LCAP to ensure accountability and equity in education. And these groups include English learners, foster and homeless youth, students with disabilities, as well as the various racial and ethnic student groups. And these groups often face unique challenges. That's the whole point. Tracking their progress helps identify gaps, allocate resources effectively, and ensure that all students receive the support that they need to succeed. The new student group to be added to the dashboard this year, long-term English learners, should also now be reflected in your metrics in your upcoming LCAP. Next slide. So for the purposes of accountability, just a reminder, a long-term English learner is defined as a student who has been learning English for 7 years, but has not yet reached full proficiency. They have yet to be reclassified. So just a note, these are 7 calendar years, not school years. And the CDE has specified within their technical guide that an English learner becomes an LTEL 2,557 days, either after they first enrolled in a U.S. school or were first classified as an English learner, and that's in the CalPADS data file, and it's whichever comes first, right? So you can actually, fortunately, the CDE is going to be adding some elements on some reports that are going to make it a lot easier to identify who your long-term English learners are based on these criteria, and that will help you specify or identify those students to target your actions for them. But it's fairly technical, but just to be clear, these are 7 calendar years. Next slide, please. So let's take a look, because this is going to come up this year since LTELs now appeared on the dashboard for the first time. We thought we'd look at a sample metric and how long-term English learners and their addition might play out in a metric. In this case, we're looking at the performance fall student groups on the academic indicator for ELA. So if you look at star 1, you'll notice the baseline data for this metric was 2023 California School Dashboard. Well, you didn't have LTELs on the 2023 school dashboard. So in this case, we've designated this in parentheses that the baseline for LTELs was set on the California School Dashboard for 2024. And then you'll need to describe the changes in your goal analysis prompt 4. So you'll want to somehow denote this within your indicator. And this isn't the only way. This is just one way that we think would be a good way to be clear on how you're including this student group. At star 2, you'll notice that the year 1 outcome for long-term English learners is identified as NA or not applicable. And since 2024 was the baseline year for this metric, the year 1 outcome would not be reported until next year. And then finally, if you look at the final column in the star 3, where you're looking at the current difference from baseline, you'll notice that the difference from baseline is also indicated as NA or not applicable. Again, since the baseline was just established, there won't be a difference this year to identify. Next slide, please. And just some final thoughts on the metrics component and choosing a data source. There are different business rules for calculating some measures. that are found on both the dashboard and DataQuest. And these business rules can lead to somewhat different data stories. We have a few resources that we recommend for better understanding the differences. Obviously, we recommend our LCAP's metric inventory. We have all those things clarified there. But you also may want to take a look at the linked document here, which is a crosswalk between DataQuest and the dashboard. Additionally, we strongly suggest that you identify your metric data source clearly, and you can go back and do that now just to avoid confusion. So make sure your metrics are clearly marked what the source was. And if possible, avoid changing. I know there's going to be some reasons that you may want to change. I've talked to a few people who are already realizing, oh, that metric, actually, I don't really know how we calculated or how we arrived at that, but can we change it? Yes, you can, but you're going to need to designate that within the LCAP, within the changes you're making in the prompt 4, similar to what we noted on the sample. So now I'm going to turn over to my colleague, Dr. Hillary Weissman.
Thank you, Evan. So let's talk a little bit about the local indicators, a little bit of an overview and a refresher for many of you. Okay, so as you know, California's accountability system is based on a multiple measure system that assesses how local educational agencies and schools are meeting the needs of their students. Performance on these measures is reported through the California School Dashboard, which includes a concise set of state indicators and local indicators that are founded on the LCFF, the Local Control Funding Formula priorities, but are also aligned to the measures required under Every Student Succeeds Act. Those LCFF priorities for which there is no state level data collected are referred to as the local indicators that you can see on this slide right now. Take note that on this slide to priority 9 and 10, which only apply to county offices of education and will not be discussed during this presentation. In addition to being a public record of progress on the dashboard, the local indicator process serves to inform process and planning within the LCAP, or what we call the Local Control and Accountability Plan. Further, progress in local indicators can inform technical assistance provided through the differentiated assistance process. Moving along, this timeline outlines key events in the process of measuring, reporting, and publishing local indicator information. As you can see, from fall to spring and prior to July 1st, conducting comprehensive data analysis around each of the local indicators takes place. On before July 1st, then presenting the results at a public board meeting as a non-consent item concurrent with the LCAP adoption occurs. And post that meeting, the dashboard coordinator reports local indicator results to the California School Dashboard through My City Connect website. These milestones represent crucial and critical junctures in a more extensive process, allowing for thorough data collection and analysis throughout the academic year. You are probably familiar with this webpage, but an LEA uses the State Board of Education adopted self-reflection tools to report its progress to the dashboard. The collection and reflection on locally available information relevant to the progress regarding local priority areas will support LEAs in completing the self-reflection tools, reporting it on the dashboard, and in local planning and improvement efforts. The 28-24 updated self-reflection tools and performance standards for each local indicator can be found on the CDE webpage linked on this slide. This page also will provide you descriptions of local indicators, the applicable State Board of Education requirements, self-reflection tools, and links to additional resources. And here you will have the option to download each of these individually, or you can make a nice, pretty, one large, super chunky guide for yourself. So this diagram that you're looking at here, this is just an illustration of the annual process for measuring progress. The first step is to become familiar with these local indicator requirements and self-reflection tools. This foundational understanding will guide the identification of relevant data and help establish an effective process for data collection. During the data analysis phase, it is important to disaggregate data where appropriate to uncover meaningful insights. In some instances, such as priority 3, parent and family engagement, it's essential to involve educational partners throughout this process. Their engagement should be carefully considered when planning activities and ensuring all deadlines are met. The findings from these activities should be then used to report progress, identify areas of need, and inform comprehensive planning within the LCAP. So the State Board of Education approved performance standards for the local indicators that support a local educational agency in measuring and reporting progress within the appropriate priority areas. The approved performance standards require an LEA to annually measure progress in meeting the requirements of a specific LCFF priority. Additionally, these results are to be reported as part of a non-consent item at the same public meeting in which the LCAP is adopted by the local governing board. And lastly, those results need to be reported and published to the public through the dashboard using the adopted self-reflection tools for each local indicator. Provided an LEA, as we look at the next slide, there you go. Provided an LEA satisfies the performance standards for each local indicator, the dashboard will automatically assign a performance level of met. If an LEA does not meet the performance standards, the dashboard will automatically assign a performance level of not met or not met for 2 or more years as applicable. Earning performance level of not met for 2 or more years may be a factor in being identified for differentiated assistance. Let's take a pause and I'm going to kick it over to Evan for the next few slides.
Thanks, Dr. Weissman. So we wanted to go a little bit deeper on a couple of the standards because they can be tricky here. So on the first one, reporting to the governing board, it's important, we know that LEAs must report the local indicators to the governing board of the LEA. At the same meeting the LCAP is adopted, we always suggest putting those local indicators on a separate line item on your board agenda. It just makes it easier. And there have been instances where the state board, for whatever reason, is like, well, where's the evidence? And it's much easier to just show them an agenda and say, here you see sharing local indicators, right? It doesn't have to be an action item, but it does have to be a non-consent item. It's got to occur before July 1st of each year, which, of course, LCAP adoption has to occur before then. But it's important to note that you must include that date when you upload them, and the dashboard system for reporting, MyCDE Connect, does not restrict you from putting a date that's later than that. And so it has happened on a couple of instances where an LEA has reported their upload date, for example, and that will result in the local indicator earning a performance rating of not met or not met for 2 years if it's the second year you've got them. So definitely be careful around this one. And just so you know, a rating of not met for 2 or more years is included in the criteria for eligibility for differentiated assistance, and it applies across all student groups. So we did see a couple of our charter schools this year identified where it was a local indicator having not met for 2 or more years that actually was one of the criteria for getting them in. Next slide. The other measure that we want to talk about is the reporting to the public through the dashboard. This, as I mentioned, this is the MyCDE Connect portal, is how local indicators are reported to the dashboard. And each LEA can annually designate up to 2 dashboard coordinators by submitting a registration form on MyCDE Connect. Good news is the term of each dashboard coordinator runs until August, so it goes through the local indicator upload window. Now, should you need to update the designated dashboard coordinator prior to the local indicator submission, just be aware that your LEA superintendent or charter school administrator is needed to approve the form for login access. So what you don't want to have happen is realize last minute, oh, we need to upload these, and our superintendent is on vacation, or we have an interim superintendent, we haven't filled that position, and now that the approval form is kind of going into the ether. So just be aware timely, if you know somebody's leaving and you need a replacement, you have the 2 dashboard coordinator roles, make sure that there's an active dashboard coordinator in place for the upload process. And then the approved dashboard coordinator can upload or submit the local indicator data during the reporting window, which we're going to discuss on the next slide. So as Hillary already mentioned, the timeline for submission of local indicators to the dashboard was adjusted in 2024 to more closely align with the LCAP approval. And this really did significantly reduce the number of LEAs that either didn't meet the deadline or came really close to not meeting the deadline. Many of you got an email or a phone call from me just to make sure that you were aware. But now it's much easier. It happens, in time with the approval. So you should be able to, you could upload your local indicators immediately upon the adoption of your LCAP. This year, the LEAs are expected to upload local indicators between June 15th, so it opens kind of early, and then August 15th is the deadline to upload. And we'll send reminders as this happens. While LEAs have been able to make some adjustments immediately after submission in the past, the CDE has indicated that no changes can be made to this information for local indicators after the closure of the 2025 local indicator reporting window. So there's a point of no return. If you see an error or whatever, just try to be very cautious when you upload that you have everything in place that you want. This does include changing the date, as I mentioned earlier, for the July 1, the prior July 1 date. So be mindful of that. And it is the responsibility of each LEA to ensure that the local indicator information is reported accurately when reporting to the 2025 dashboard. Next slide, please. Next, we're going to briefly review some of the individual local indicators. And since I spoke earlier about the required LCAP metrics for priority 1, I'll discuss what LEAs are expected to measure in the local indicator for priority 1. This measure includes 3 components reported on annually, including appropriately assigned teachers, student access to standards-aligned instructional materials, and safe, clean, and functional school facilities. And I just really want to highlight the element of this local indicator that produces the most questions due to the timing of its release. And that, of course, is the teacher assignment monitoring outcome data, or TAMO data. LEAs are required to share the TAMO data with their local governing board at the same public meeting of the local governing board at which the LCAP is adopted. Along with verifying students' access to curriculum-aligned instructional materials as safe, clean, and functional facilities per Williams, the Williams Act, and everyone's pretty good on that. It's the TAMO data that gives everybody headaches because in the past years it hasn't been available typically at the time of adoption. So just like last year, if the 2023-24 TAMO data, which is going to be the next available year, if it's unavailable at the time of reporting the local indicator to the governing board, the LEA must report this data at the next available meeting of the governing board following the release of the TAMO data. So keep that in mind. It needs to go back. And last year, there was some murkiness, but the CDE has subsequently clarified there is an expectation that the TAMO data will be shared as a non-consent item, similar to the regular local indicators. So mark your agenda, put a placeholder there for your next board meeting. The TAMO data will come back and just as a non-consent item, similar to the local indicators. And I'll hand the next one over to Hillary.
Thank you, Evan. So let's talk a little bit about measuring priority 2, the implementation of state standards. LEAs have 2 options for reporting their progress on the implementation of state standards within this priority. They can either provide a narrative summary or complete the reflection tool. In the narrative box provided on the dashboard, LEAs can identify the locally selected measures or tools that the LEA is using to track its progress in implementing the state academic standards adopted by the state board, briefly describe why they chose the selected measures or tools, and summarize their progress as it relates to implementation. Conversely, the reflection tool leverages a 5-point rubric ranging from the exploration and research phase to full implementation and sustainability. The reflection tool allows districts to determine progress being made towards state standards implementation as it relates to professional learning, instructional materials, improving the delivery of instruction, implementation of other adopted academic standards, and supports for teachers and administration. On this slide, we've provided you not only the adopted content standards, but also a list of sample measures or artifacts that can support determining progress levels. As you can see, we've included a wide range of samples, measures, ranging from assessments such as CASP and interim IABs to instructional rounds or observations where evidence of specific standards implementation is being observed. As we move along here to family engagement is an essential strategy for building pathways to college and career readiness for all students and is an essential component of a systems approach to improving outcomes for those students. More than 30 years of research has shown that family engagement can lead to improved student outcomes. The LCFF legislation recognized the importance of family engagement by requiring LEAs to address priority 3 within their LCAP. The self-reflection tool for this priority is organized into 3 sections: building relationships between school staff and families, building partnerships for student outcomes, and seeking input for decision-making. Based on an evaluation of data, including educational partner input, an LEA will use the self-reflection tool to report its progress, success, and areas of need related to family engagement policies, programs, and practices. This tool will enable an LEA to engage in continuous improvement and determine next steps to make improvements in the areas identified. The results of the process should be used to inform the LCAP and its development process, including assessing prior years' goals, actions, and services, and in modifying future goals, actions, and services. The most significant steps within the self-reflection process revolve around the following concepts that include ensuring input from a diverse range of educational partners, with particular attention to often underrepresented groups such as unduplicated families and individuals with exceptional needs. Secondly, engaging diverse educational partners to determine relevant data and information. Next, collaboratively determining the current stage of implementation based upon a 5-point rubric. Next, leveraging the analysis of educational partner input and local data when responding to each prompt within the tool. And lastly, using the findings from the self-reflection process to inform updates to the LCAP, as well as other school or district plans. In this slide, we've identified several sample measures that range from parent surveys, such as California's School Parent Survey, to WASC focus groups as evident of parent and family engagement. So the initial design of the local control funding formula recognized the critical role that positive school conditions and climate play in advancing student performance and equity. This recognition is grounded in a research base demonstrating that a positive school climate directly impacts indicators of success, such as increased teacher retention, lower dropout rates, decreased incidences of violence, and higher student achievement. In order to support a comprehensive planning, LEAs need to assess their current data. The measurement of school climate provides LEAs with critical data that can be used to track progress of school climate for purpose of continuous improvement and the ability to identify needs and implement changes across these needs. At its January 2024 meeting, the State Board of Education adopted a revised self-reflection tool for Priority 6 school climate to be used in completing these local indicators. The revised self-reflection tool for this priority requires that local educational agencies to administer a local climate survey on an annual basis. And as you can see on the slide, the survey must capture a valid measure of student perceptions of school safety and connectedness, and at least one grade within each grade span that the LEA serves. And at a maximum, report disaggregated data by student groups identified in California Ed Code, Section 52052, when such data is available as part of the local school climate survey. Based upon this analysis, including local climate survey data, LEAs are required to address 3 prompts associated with the disaggregation of this data by student groups when available, including an analysis of a subset of specific items on a local survey, and additional data collection tools that are particularly relevant to school conditions and climate. Key learnings, including identified needs and areas of strength determined through the analysis of this data, and any changes to existing plans, policies, or procedures from the key learnings. Some sample measures of evidence that support this priority can include school, student school climate surveys such as California Healthy Kids Survey, and input from parent advisory groups such as School Site Council, ELAC, or DLAC. Measuring Priority 7, the access to a broad course study, reports the extent to which all students have access to and are enrolled in a broad course of study within 4 different narrative prompts. The prompts initially ask for data analysis around grade spans, unduplicated student groups, and individuals with exceptional needs being served. Next, you're prompted to provide a summary of the analysis, including any differences across school sites and student groups, with mention made to progress over time. After providing a summary of the data analysis, LEAs will identify any potential barriers students may experience. And lastly, LEAs are prompted to address any new revisions, decisions, or actions that may be implemented as a result of said identified barriers. As you can see in the slide, we've made a distinction between a broad course of study between grades 1st through 6th and 7th through 12th per Ed Code. Some suggested examples of data can include enrollment in course programs, such as advanced placement, dual enrollment, AVID, CTE, GATE, IB, VAPA, and others. Additionally, the percentage of students on track to meet graduation and or college and career readiness as measured by your student information system tracking tools. Fulfillment of course requirements or similar measures are also viable examples of data to consider including. Moving along, many of the metrics used to identify access to a broad course of study, Priority 7, have a corresponding outcome that can be included in the LCAP among other pupil outcomes for Priority 8. On this slide, we've identified some of the other possible measures such as State Seal of Biliteracy, Golden State Seal Merit Diploma, college credit courses completed, National Merit Scholars, CTE internships, and certificates, to name a few. And lastly, before we hand it over back to the LCAP group, as we wrap up this section, we wanted to also provide you an updated and a handy version of our local indicator guidance and measurement tool we've created as a supplement to the CDE's local indicator quick guide. This tool provides you a summary of each local indicator's process along with suggested data sources, coupled with questions to enhance your analysis and key elements to consider adding in your narratives. The link is shared here for your convenience, and it should push you to make a forced copy. And I'm going to hand it back to Adrian and Jeannie, I believe.
Thanks so much, Hillary. Good morning, everyone. This morning, Adrian Balcazar and I will present the section addressing the equity multiplier. So this morning, our presentation addresses eligibility for equity multiplier funding and requirements for equity multiplier focus goals in the LCAP. This includes completing the goal analysis for the equity multiplier focus goals in the current year LCAP and developing the equity multiplier focus goals for their schools receiving equity multiplier funding for the 25-26 school year. Our slide offers key elements divided into 4 main areas. First, under requirements, guidance is provided in specific education code sections and resources available on the LCFF Equity Multiplier webpage. Next is the LCAP template, which outlines key sections and instructions, including general information, engaging educational partners, and defining goals and actions sections. Moving to scenarios and examples are what we might see in the LCAP for the 25-26 school year, such as goals remaining unchanged, addressing ongoing or new priorities, or instances where a school site is no longer eligible for funds. Lastly, the resource section offers CDE's Tuesdays at 2 session, including scenarios for year 2 and funding information provided on the CDE webpage, as well as LCAP resources. So we'll take a closer look. First, we'll provide an overview of the school eligibility criteria. There are 2 criteria that make a school eligible for equity multiplier funds. These are a prior year non-stability rate that is greater than 25% and prior year socioeconomically disadvantaged pupil rates greater than 70%. These criteria and allocation are published by CDE as calculated in the P1 or first principle apportionment. The eligibility is determined annually. To maintain eligibility for funding, both criteria must apply annually to a school site. CDE has indicated they anticipate the posting of this eligibility in February. Additionally, this slide identifies where the specific requirements need to be addressed in the LCAP template. This morning, we will look at where equity multiplier is addressed in the plan summary, engaging educational partners, and in the goals and actions sections in the template. We will look at these 3 sections in the template that require descriptions addressing the requirements for schools that are eligible for equity multiplier funding. So let's dig in, starting with the first section. Here we're looking at the plan summary. Here, LEAs must identify as part of the response in the general information section all schools in the LEA that are receiving equity multiplier funding. Next, in the LCAP section for engaging educational partners, at minimum, the LEAs must describe how it met its obligation to consult with all statutorily required educational partners as applicable to the type of LEAs, and For LEAs receiving equity multiplier funds, they must also include a summary of how the LEA consulted with educational partners at each of the schools generating equity multiplier funds in the development of the required focus goals addressing the areas of eligibility for each of the schools. Additionally, in the second prompt, an LEA receiving equity multiplier funds must include a description of how the consultation with educational partners at the schools generating these funds influenced the development of the adopted LCAP. And third, we're looking at the goals and actions section. In this section, we refer here to the language in the instructions that requires the focus goal to address the lowest performance level on one or more indicators on the dashboard. As LEAs are developing focus goals annually, this determination of lowest performance on the dashboard must align to the most recent results on the dashboard. Additionally, the focus goal must address any underlying issues in credentialing, subject matter preparation, and retention of the school's educators, if this is applicable. And so here, we really want to pause and emphasize that while the instructions for addressing the requirements for equity multiplier schools have not changed this year, we bring to your attention how the equity multiplier focus goal is dynamic and may require shifting annually to address the latest data from the California School Dashboard, targeting the lowest performing student group each year. This annual focus requires LEAs to adapt their efforts to meet the most pressing and emerging needs of students in their equity multiplier focus goals. So we offer some questions for LEAs to address as they approach year 2 for schools that continue eligibility or for their new schools. So for example, how do actions, metrics, and expenditures address annual requirements? This question is addressing the requirement to focus the goal and actions on the lowest performing student groups identified on the 2024 dashboard. Another consideration, what are the lowest performing student groups in year 2? This question is foundational in determining any adjustments to student groups and metrics that need to be made in a focus goal. And so next in our presentation, Adrian will address funding for eligible equity multiplier schools and share some scenarios for equity multiplier goals for the 25-26 LCAP.
Thank you, Jeannie. So the Equity Multiplier is a funding program that began in the 23-24 school year, and the funding is a separate source of funding allocated outside of the LCFF entitlement. It is identified as a separate line item of the principal apportionment summary, and the revenue and expenditures are tracked with a unique standard account code structure, otherwise known as SACS code. And so therefore, equity multiplier funds are considered other state funds and are identified as other state funds in the expenditure tables in the LCAP. And lastly, we want to point out that the funding must be used to supplement, not supplant, the funding and that provided to the eligible school sites for the purposes of LCFF, the ELOP, literacy coaches and reading specialists grant, and or California Community Schools Partnership Program. So again, these funds can only be used for those eligible school sites. Here are just a few scenarios to help you figure out how to address the equity multiplier focus goal in the 25-26 LCAP for just one school. So again, we want you to be understand for one school the requirements. And we often know that sometimes multiple schools, if they have similar situations and data, you can group them together. However, for today's purpose, we want you to be grounded in just focusing in on one school and following these particular scenarios. So the first scenario is you have an equity multiplier school and there are no changes based on the 2024 dashboard. So that means that minimally, there's no changes to the goal, the why statement, the metrics, or the actions. So what you would do is just give an update in the goal analysis section and update the funding information because you would be receiving another year of equity multiplier funding. And so again, do you have to change? No. However, can you? Yes, always, as this is a living document. The next scenario is it's the same school identified, but there are additional student groups and or indicators that have been identified based on the 24 dashboard. So you're keeping you have the similar student groups, but then you have now additional ones. So now you have to take a look at your original goal and see it may no longer apply. So you will need to revise the goal. And as far as metrics, depending on the student groups that are maintained, you will have to retain those existing metrics, but you will have to add new metrics or a metric. And then in actions, the same applies. You would need to retain existing actions and perhaps add the new actions to address the student groups and or indicators that were identified on the 24 dashboard. And then you would describe the changes in the goal analysis section, and you would, again, update your funding information. Another scenario would be that you have the same school, but now you have totally different student groups and indicators that have been identified based on the 24 dashboard. So now you would need to amend that goal description. The why statement would have to change, the metrics and the actions, because they would now need to address the new student groups and indicators that have been identified. So those new metrics would be added. You may retain those prior metrics just as for historical purposes. But again, that would just be something to provide the story to your community and with the equity multiplier funds. And then also you would replace the current actions with new actions. Again, describing the changes in the goal analysis section and updating the funding information. Another consideration would be that the LEAs do have the option of retaining a goal that's been discontinued for historical purposes. So if you perhaps would like to, and the community, they want to see that the focus goal stay in the LCAP moving forward, again, by all means, you do not have to eliminate it. You can leave it for historical purposes. And so again, you would retain that original goal and you would describe in the goal analysis that you're leaving it. And, again, if you have some, I don't know about upcoming funding information, but there might be. So again, you would, have that option. And so we want to, again, provide you with some additional resources and links to the CDE website so that you can go deeper with this if you would like to know more. And by all means, reach out to us too, because we've had a lot of conversations with CDE about this. So we definitely can walk you through all the scenarios really. So please, reach out to us. And so now Kathy Connell will present on the action tables.
Thank you, Adrienne, and good morning, everyone. Next slide. The action tables overview. The action tables required for this year's LCAP submission are the same as the previous year. There continue to be 5 required tables. The first 2 represent totals and calculations for the coming 25-26 LCAP year, and the remaining 3 tables display updates on revenues and expenditure estimates for the 24-25 current year. The data entry points for the tables may vary depending on whether the LEA is an ELCAP or DTS system user, but most of the data will auto-populate. One critical source of information for the accuracy reported on the tables will be the LEA's finalized LCFF calculator, updated with the May revise assumptions. The governor is scheduled to make the May revise available around mid-May. By finalized LCFF calculator, we mean that it has been updated with the certified ADA accounts. Now let's take a look at each table as we move on to the next slide. Beginning with the total planned expenditure table, which contains information regarding the projected LCFF base revenue amount, supplemental and concentration grant projection, the projected percentage to improve and increase services, including the prior year carryover percentage, if any, also referred to as the minimum proportionality percentage, or MPP, which we will highlight again in the upcoming slide. Finally, the table displays the details for all LCAP actions by funding source, broken out both by personnel and non-personnel costs. If you're an ELCAP or DTS user, this information will auto-populate based on the data that is entered as you finalize your plan within the respective system. Moving on to the next slide. The contributing actions table contains information only for actions that contribute to increased or improved services in 25-26. What is critical here, which we've highlighted in the green boxes, is to ensure that the projected LCFF base grant amount, the projected supplemental and concentration grant amount, and the projected percentage to increase or improve services correlate with the amounts and percentages identified in the updated LCFF calculator. Equally important, and what we've highlighted in red, is ensuring that the planned percentage to increase or improve services for the coming LCAP year is equal to or greater than the total percentage to increase or improve services. In other words, LEAs must ensure that they've met their MPP. If you're an ELCAP user, you'll notice that the ELCAP system will indicate whether or not that percentage is met. If you're a DTS system user, you'll want to review and carefully verify that the percentage is equal to or greater than the total percentage. Moving on to the next slide. Now we're going to shift our focus to the tables that pertain to the current year, beginning with the annual update table. This table contains information about the LEA's estimated expenditures for LCAP actions compared to the originally budgeted expenditures. What's important to note in this table is to ensure that the actions and planned expenditures correspond with the LEA's 24-25 adopted LCAP. Just as important, when entering those estimated expenditure totals, LEAs must ensure that the amounts are as of June 30th, 2025, representing the annual cost for each corresponding action. Oftentimes, expenditures are paid after the fiscal year ends, referred to as accrued expenses. However, they are still part of the annual 24-25 cost. So it is critical that the program and fiscal staff work closely to make certain that all expenses are accounted for and included. Next slide, please. The Contributing Actions Annual Update Table contains information only for actions that contribute to increase or improve services in the current year. In this table, the LEA's estimated supplemental and concentration grant amount must correlate with the district's updated LCFF calculator, as highlighted in the green boxes. Then, highlighted in red, the estimated expenditure for each action must represent the annual cost through June 30th, 2025. We cannot emphasize enough how important it is to ensure that the annual cost is captured, because if an LEA underreports, it may negatively impact the calculation that determines the total estimated actual percentage to increase or improve services. In other words, if an LEA underreports its estimated expenditure, it may result in carryover, and you'll want to avoid that by accurately reporting those estimated annual costs. Next slide, please. This slide may look familiar, and that's because we want to emphasize the importance of ensuring that the estimated expenditures entered for the current year's contributing actions are equal to or less than the estimated expenditures in the annual update table. The reason why we're emphasizing this is that in the annual update table, the estimated expenditures include all funds, while the contributing annual actions table only includes expenditures funded by the LCFF funds. For all ELCAP users, we've embedded a safeguard in the ELCAP system that will prevent a data entry error from happening. But DTS users must verify the accuracy of each entry. Moving on to the next and final slide. Here we have the LCFF carryover table, which calculates and displays the unmet portion of the percentage to increase or improve services, if any, that the LEA must carry over into the coming LCAP year. And it also displays the prior year's carryover percentage. The prior year's percentage will roll over for all ELCAP users, but ELAs using DTS should ensure that the carryover percentage correlates with the prior year's adopted LCAP. A data entry for the LCFF base grant amount must be entered into this table. And again, the information should correlate with the district's updated LCFF calculator as highlighted in the green boxes. If you have questions about your LCFF calculator, have district fiscal staff contact your LACO Business Services consultant. This wraps up the action tables for this section of the training, and now I'll hand it over to my colleague Andrew to go over the budget overview for parents.
Thank you, Kathy. My name is Andrew, and I will be going over the budget overview for parents. Okay. The budget overview for parents is a required template to be submitted in addition to your LCAP. We would recommend that you prepare the budget overview for parents after you have finished your LCAP. The information on the budget overview for parents is not electronically linked to the LCAP, or the LCAP is not linked to the budget overview for parents. Basically, the budget overview for parents is a snapshot. It's a 3-page document that tells you the projected revenues by funding source for the fiscal year 25-26, the coming year, and the budgeted expenditures for the 25-26 school year, and the prior year, which is going to be 24-25 expenditures for the high-need students. Do the next slide, please. Okay. How do we generate the template for the budget overview for parents? I'm going to say BOP for shortened, so instead of saying budget overview for parents. You can download this template from the CD website, which is at the bottom here, and it is highlighted there. You will click to the template. However, how do we get to the template? Because if you click on the template right now, you download it and click right now, it's going to be blank. You have to put some information in to generate a template. So can we get the next slide, please? Okay. What we have done here is to do a crosswalk to show you how to get that information to generate the template. But before we go to start generating any information for the template, what do we need? One, the budget form 01, sometimes referred to as Fund 01, and my colleague Kathy indicated that the May revise of the LCFF Figma calculator, very important. The May revise is the updated version of the governor's budget. We had one right here in January, so we'll have all the latest information. The 25-26 planned expenditure table, the 25-26 contributed actions table, and the 24-25 contributed actions annual update table. Now that you have this information, and we can start to prepare our template. So when you download the BOP from CD, you will see this format. This is your input form. This is where all the information goes in to generate the template. Okay, the first section is, can you go back to the form, please? The first section is your district information. The second section here is the kind of yellow, I call it yellow, kind of colorblind, which has all your revenues. And the third section is the salmon, which for your expenditures and high need students. And the fourth section is for the prior year students. Great, thank you. Can you go to the next slide, please? Okay, now let's put our information into the template. First, if you notice here, we have the revenues, all of Form 1 revenues. And at the bottom here, if you look to the right-hand corner, you see budget. That's the one we use. Just be careful. Do not use the estimated actuals. Make sure you use the 2025-26 budget. Okay. And we have highlighted and prepared a crosswalk. For example, total LCFF funds. I'm going to use one of them. So it's on line 1, which is A. So you put that information into the input table form there, the data input. And likewise, you go down and do your LCFF supplemental and concentration grant. That's not included in Form 01. That comes from the Figma calculator. So that's a different source. So the other funding sources of funds come from the Form 01. So once you have finished that, you have completed all your revenue information part. Can you go to the next slide, please? Okay, now your expenditure side. Okay, same thing. Some of the expenditures or total expenditures will come from your Form 01, and some of it will come from the 25-26 total planned expenditure table and the contributing actions table. Okay, next one, please. Okay, this one here is for your prior year or the current year between for the high need students, which is the 24-25 contributed actions update table. Now, when you have input all your information into the data input Excel spreadsheet type format, that information will be transferred over to the 3 required pages. So can we go to the next slide, please? Okay. Depending on the information you input, you may or may not have to do an explanation. So this is contingent on your information is limited to about 75 words. Next slide, please. This is what you've generated. This is your template. So this is generated from the information that you put from your data input sheet. So all of it is automatically transferred over here, okay? I would suggest that you double check your information to make sure that on the first page where you have your pie charts, and the other graph on the second and third pages, make sure you double check your information because it will automatically populate. I would suggest for those fiscal staff who have never done the BOP, the budget overview for parents, I would suggest get the information from what we have our slide today, our workshop slides today, download the budget overview for parents and plug it in there. You will not have the 25-26 and 24-25 information for the high need students. Just put a number in there. and see if you get something similar to this. This is what makes sure all the data is input in there. So I would suggest that you do and play around with it a little bit. So right now, LCAP is a few months away, but you might start working on it. So if you have any questions regarding the budget overview for parents, I would suggest contact the business services consultant who's assigned to your district, or you can contact me. We'd be happy to assist you. On behalf of my colleague Kathy and myself, we thank you for your time. Thank you very much. And now I will turn it over to Anita.
Thank you, Andrew. And so now the following slides will go over the LCAP development timeline and the approval process. So as you are well aware, there are many components that go into the development of the LCAP, and it begins in the fall and moves through the rest of the school year. And to support you in planning and developing the 25-26 LCAP, we put together a resource that you will see here on this slide, as well as on our LCAP Canvas page. This 24-25 LCAP timeline details actions and tasks to be completed in the 24-25 school year to guide the development process of the 25-26 LCAP. Now, these screenshots serve as a reminder that the development of the LCAP is a process that takes time. It takes planning, reflection, and it involves your educational partners all along the way. The intent of this document is to offer you a guide with steps to take, key processes to implement, and reflective questions to consider so that your LCAP is comprehensive, meaningful, and compliant. And this will ensure that opportunities and outcomes are improved for all students and that your LCAP is approved without delay. So currently, as noted by the "You Are Here" icon, we are in the winter-spring season of the development phase. And at the bottom of this slide, the link to the document is provided as well. So the beginning of the school year between August and November was the time to get reacquainted with local indicators, the self-reflection tools, and determine who is responsible for what. Now, December through April, LEAs continue to collect evidence from local indicators. And most recently, we've all been analyzing our dashboard data and taking a look at our actions, our expenditures, and our metrics thus far as we complete the mid-year update and report to our school boards and governing bodies. Nonetheless, this slide serves as a reminder that the local indicators also offer noteworthy information for an LEA. And often the data that we gather from the local indicators and our educational partners, such as our students, our staff, and parents, is more timely, relevant, and introspective. And these results provide opportunities to influence the actions and services we plan for the upcoming LCAP. And it's important for LEAs to connect the local indicator process with the LEA's LCAP development process. The important tasks in the cycle of continuous improvement will be to analyze the data, determine the needs of students, staff, parents, and then plan actions and services accordingly for the upcoming school year. LEAs will continue to either adopt, adapt, or abandon actions and services as part of the PDS cycle and goal analysis prompts. Now, moving forward on this timeline, between May and June, but no later than July 1st, LEAs will report results of local indicators to their local governing board or body as a non-consent agenda item. And this will be at the same meeting where the 25-26 LCAP and budget will be presented to the LEA's governing board or governing body for adoption. The flag post on the upper right-hand corner of this slide serves as a reminder of this important task. And finally, during the summer of 2025, specifically from June 15th through August 15th, the LEA will upload the results of the local indicators to the dashboard. And please keep in mind that LEAs will not be allowed to request changes to be made to the information submitted after the closure of the local indicator reporting window. So once the LCAP has been developed with all the required components, including consultation with educational partners and the SELPA, There are required steps that school districts must adhere to leading up to the submission of the adopted LCAP to the County Office of Education. And the steps on this page also apply to charter schools using their LCAP as their SIPSA. The superintendent shall present the 25-26 LCAP draft to the Parent Advisory Committee for review and opportunity to comment. The 25-26 LCAP draft is also presented to the English Learner Parent Advisory Committee as applicable for review and comments. The superintendent will respond to all comments from the PAC and the ELPAC if it applies to your LEA in written form. And next, the LEA will notify its members of the public in its community of the opportunity to view the LCAP draft. The community must have the opportunity to submit written comments regarding the expenditures and actions in the LCAP to the LEA. Now, continuing on, the superintendent will review school plans as applicable to ensure that the strategies and actions in the SIPSAs are consistent with the 25-26 LCAP draft. And once these steps have been completed, you're in the home stretch. LEAs will hold at least one public hearing of the 25-26 LCAP in order to solicit recommendations and comments from the public regarding specific actions and expenditures proposed in the LCAP. This public hearing will be on the same day as the public hearing for the proposed 25-26 budget. Budget and LCAP, they're like salt and pepper. These two, they always go together. And lastly, at a public meeting held after, but not on the same day as the public hearing, the governing board of the LEA shall adopt the budget and the LCAP for the 25-26 school year. And I know people are going to put this in the chat, so I'm going to have the answer for you here. Charter schools and charter schools only may hold the public hearing and the adoption of the LCAP and budget at the same public meeting. And once adopted, all LEAs, school districts, and all charter schools are to upload the adopted LCAP to LACO's e-LCAP system. School districts will upload no later than 5 days after adoption. Charter schools submit to the e-LCAP system no later than July 1st. Now, specific regulations for charter schools regarding this process can be found in Ed Code 47604.33 or 47606.5, and for school districts in Ed Code 52062. And so now that your LCAP is adopted, school districts enter the approval phase. Statute provides the requirements and timeline for LCAP approval. Now, as previously mentioned, the LCAP must be adopted by the local governing board on or before July 1st. Within 5 calendar days, that includes Saturdays, Sundays, and holidays, of adoption, you submit the adopted LCAP to LACO via the e-LCAP system. It is at this time that the formal review and approval process begins for school districts. Between the time the LCAP is officially submitted and through the end of July, school district LCAPs are thoroughly reviewed. And if necessary, on or before August 15th, the County Office of Education will request in writing clarification of contents of a school district's LCAP. Within 15 days of receipt of this clarification letter, the district shall respond in writing to the County Office of Education regarding these requests. Within 15 days of receiving the response from the district, the County Office of Education may provide recommendations in writing for amendments to the LCAP. The district must then consider the recommendations in a public meeting within 15 days of receiving them from the County Office of Education. If a school district's LCAP and budget are approved by the County Office of Education by the end of August or early September, an approval letter will be sent to the governing board of a school district on or before September 15th. It is important to note that the district's budget cannot be approved until the LCAP is approved. The deadline for the county office to approve school district LCAPs is October 8th. When formally reviewing the LCAP, there are 4 criteria that must be met for approval. 1, the LEA has adhered to the State Board of Education adopted template and has followed all instructions for completing that template. 2, the LEA budget for the upcoming fiscal year includes expenditures that are sufficient to implement the actions in the LCAP. 3, the LEA has demonstrated how it is meeting its requirement to increase or improve services for students who are low-income English learners and foster youth. And finally, the LEA has made the required calculations to determine whether there is a carryover requirement in supplemental and concentration funds for unduplicated pupils and describes planned uses in the LCAP meeting the minimum proportionality percentage, or lovingly known as MPP. The pre-review process offers school districts an opportunity to ensure that the LCAP team is on track to address all the legal requirements in the LCAP prior to board adoption. And we appreciate the continued positive feedback we receive from school districts about the pre-review process, and we are very grateful for our partnerships. And so thus, once again, we have offered the opportunity for school districts to participate in a pre-review process before the official LCAP submission. LCAP reviewers have already reached out to each one of our school districts via email last December and are concluding the initial support meetings as we approach February. Now, this closes out the timeline information, and next up is Rachel.
Thank you, Anita. We have breaking news, and so I'm going to pause here, and I'm going to ask Evan Bartelheim to share his news.
It's not exciting breaking news. So we just had an update from the CDE with regards to the timeline for the submission of local indicators. They moved it up a little bit this year. So the window for the local indicator submission opens on June 2nd, and it'll close on August 1st. So just
okay.
change your calendars. We'll update the presentation. One other note that there will be the LCAP upload into the dashboard, which was new this last year. That window opens on October 13th, closes October 31st. I don't think we have a slide for that, but we will add that information in a follow-up.
Great, thank you. That was exciting.
It is, because then it got everyone to pay attention. Not that they're not already, but we want that message to be known. Thank you. And now we will have Rachel.
Okay, good morning, everyone. So the next few slides will cover how to submit your completed LCAP to LACO. And so just as a reminder, all school districts and charter schools in LA County will submit their 2025-26 LCAP using the LACO eLCAP system. And so for school districts, as Anita mentioned, it must be submitted within 5 days of adoption. And for charter schools, it must be submitted on or before July 1st. Now, if your LEA does not use the LACO eLCAP system to develop your LCAP, then you will need to upload a PDF of your complete LCAP, which includes the budget overview for parents, the 2025-26 LCAP, the action tables, and the LCAP instructions. And also remember that the PDF that gets uploaded to the system should be one single file with all of those components just mentioned in that specific order. And so for LEAs that do use our eLCAP system to develop the LCAP, in the next section, we'll be going over the steps to roll over your plan, as well as provide a brief overview of the key sections in the eLCAP system. Okay, so first for non-eLCAP users, we just wanted to provide a quick overview of the steps to upload and submit a PDF of your completed LCAP. So you're going to start off by logging into the eLCAP system, or if you don't already have an account, then you would need to register as a new user at elcap.laco.edu. And so once you're in the system, you'll click on Manage Plans, which is located on the left menu bar under LCAP. And on the next screen, you will select the orange button that says Add New Plan, and you can see that here in step 3. So once you add a new plan, this title page that you see in step 4 will pop up. And you'll need to complete the required fields on this page, which includes the plan title and year, the date of adoption, the LEA type and name, as well as the LEA contact information. And for the plan year, be sure to select 2025-26. At the bottom of the title page, you can see where you will upload the PDF file of your complete LCAP. And so remember, the system will only allow you to upload one file. So it's important to ensure that all of the LCAP components are included in the correct order as previously mentioned. At the bottom of the title page, you will need to click on the box that says, do you want to use the PDF plan upload? And this will allow you to choose your file to upload. Once you've selected your file, then you will click on the green cloud button to upload that file. And then once the upload completes and you've confirmed that the file name replaces the Choose File button, you will need to click the Save button. And then the final step is to submit the plan. So next you would need to go back to the plan index, and there you will see an orange Submit button at the top of the screen. And so you'll click on this button to officially submit your plan to LCAP. Okay, so the next section, we have the ELCAP overview. And so this last section of today's workshop is only applicable to those LEAs that use the ELCAP system to develop their LCAP. So for those of you who don't use the ELCAP system, we want to thank you for joining us today and know that the LCAP team is here to support you. Please be sure to fill out the evaluation before you go, and you can find the link in the chat. And so for this next section, as mentioned, we're going to provide a brief overview of the ELCAP system, including how to roll over the plan for 25-26. And so we know that we're probably going to go over in time a little bit. So if you're not able to stay for this overview, know that we are recording it and we'll post it soon. So if your LEA used the ELCAP system to develop the 2024-25 LCAP, you'll be able to roll over relevant information into the 25-26 LCAP. And so this includes the general information prompt and the annual performance prompt in the plan summary section. Also, the 2024-25 goals, metrics, baseline, year 3 outcome targets, and all of the actions in the goals and actions section, as well as prompts 1 and 2 of the increased or improved services section. The data for the annual update table, the contributing actions annual update table, and the LCFF carryover table will also roll over. So these next few slides provide a quick overview of the steps to roll over the plan. Again, for those LEAs that use the ELCAP system to develop the 24-25 LCAP. So first, you would need to log into the ELCAP system, or if you don't have an account, then you would need to register as a new user. And so if you're a new user, you will also need to be added as a user to the approved 24-25 plan in order to complete the rollover. And if there is not someone in your LEA who can add you to the approved 24-25 plan, you can contact your LCAP coordinator for assistance with this process. And so once you're in the system, you'll click on Manage Plans on the left menu bar under LCAP. And then you'll need to select the approved 24-25 plan. What you see on this screen will vary by user depending on how many drafts were created in the ELCAP system. But you should only see one approved plan for the 24-25 year. And you can confirm this by looking at the third column, which indicates the planned year, and also the last column, which shows the status. And so once you've found the approved 24-25 plan, then you would click on the plan title. And so once you've selected the approved 24-25 plan, you will see this screen that shows the plan index of your approved 24-25 LCAP. At the top of the screen, you will see the rollover button. And so you would just click on this button to roll over the plan. After clicking the rollover button, you should see a message in green stating that the plan rolled over successfully. And so now you would need to go back to the Manage Plans section to find the rolled over plan. And again, you can find the Manage Plans tab on the left menu bar. In the Manage Plans section, the rolled over plan will have the word rollover and the date and time of the rollover in the plan title. And you'll notice that the status will now be draft, as you can see in this example on the screen. And so remember to go back and edit the plan title to remove the word rollover and the date and timestamp. And you can do this by going to the title page section in the plan index. So once you click on the rolled over plan, you will see the plan index as shown here in this screenshot. The plan index features all of the sections of the LCAP and allows you to navigate through the various sections as you're developing the plan. And so you will need to go into each section to enter the information that was not rolled over, as well as review the sections that were rolled over to see if any edits are needed. There are also some sections in the plan index which you can see have the word preview. And so these sections are read-only and allow you to preview certain sections of the plan, such as the goals and the action tables. The data for the preview sections is entered in the data entry for the 24-25 action tables, as well as the data entry for the 25-26 goals, actions, and budget sections. So in the plan index, you will see a link to the budget overview for parents upload. The budget overview for parents, also called the BOP, is part of the LCAP, but it is not completed within the eLCAP system. So the BOP will be completed using the CDE template and will then need to be uploaded to the eLCAP system. And remember, only the template tab of the BOP should be uploaded. So prior to uploading, you will need to convert the template tab of the BOP into a PDF. To upload a PDF file, you would click on the Choose File button to select the PDF, then click the green cloud button to upload the file. And then a pop-up will appear that shows the progress of the upload. And then once the upload completes, you'll see that the file name will replace the Choose File button. So here we see a screenshot of the data entry for the 2024-25 action table section. And so this is where LEAs will enter the data for the annual update table, the contributing actions annual update table, and the LCFF carryover table. When you click on this section, you will see 3 tabs across the top of the page, one for each of the 24-25 tables that require data entry. So most of the data in these tables is either rolled over from the 24-25 LCAP or auto-populated based on the data entered. However, there are a few fields where data needs to be entered, which we will review in the next few slides. So the first tab is the 2024-25 annual update table. And on this page, you will see all of the actions that were included in the 2024-25 LCAP, as well as the total planned expenditures for each action. This is where you will enter the estimated actual expenditures for each action. And so you would click on the pencil icon to enter an amount, and then click on the save icon after entering each amount. As you enter and save the estimated actual expenditures for each action, the amount will be added to the total amount indicated at the top of the screen. And just as a reminder, the estimated actual expenditures that need to be entered are the estimated cost for each action as of June 30th, 2025. The next tab is the 2024-25 Contributing Actions Annual Update Table. On this screen, you will see all of the contributing actions that were included in the 2024-25 LCAP. And so here is where you will enter the estimated actual LCFF supplemental and/or concentration grant amount for the 2024-25 year. Also, the estimated actual expenditure of LCFF funds for each contributing action included in the 24-25 LCAP. And if applicable, the estimated actual percentage of improved services. And then again, the estimated actual expenditures for each contributing action are the estimated costs as of June 30th, 2025. And then again, to enter these amounts, you'll click on the pencil icon to open the fields, and then just click on the save icon after entering each amount. One thing to remember is that for the estimated actual expenditure amount for each contributing action, it's only asking for LCFF funds here. So if you have a contributing action that includes LCFF funds and another funding source, such as federal funds, you can only include the LCFF funds here. Another thing to note is that for the estimated actual percentage of improved services, you will only be able to enter a percentage if the estimated actual expenditures for that action is $0. The system will not allow you to enter a percentage if there is an amount over $0. And then lastly, the other fields shown in the table are either auto-populated from the 24-25 LCAP or auto-calculated based on the data entered. The third tab is for the 24-25 LCFF carryover table. This table will calculate the LCFF carryover, if any, that will be required to be carried over from the 24-25 LCAP year into the 25-26 plan. Now, most of the information in this table is auto-populated or auto-calculated. However, there is one field that LEAs will need to input. LEAs will need to enter the estimated actual LCFF base grant dollar amount. And this is the total amount of LCFF funding the LEA estimates it will receive for the current school year, so for 24-25, excluding the supplemental and concentration grants and add-ons for the Targeted Instructional Improvement Grant Program and the Home to School Transportation Program. And so again, to enter this amount, you'll just click on the pencil icon to open the field, and then remember to click the save icon after entering that amount. So here we see a screenshot of the data entry for the 2025-26 goals, actions, and budget, which includes the data entry tabs for the goals, the measuring and reporting results, goal analysis, actions, and budget summary. And so as previously mentioned, your 24-25 goals, which includes the type of goal, the state priorities addressed by the goal description, and goal explanation will roll over. And so to edit a goal that was rolled over, you would just click on the pencil icon next to the goal. And if you need to delete a goal, you would just click on the trash can icon. You can also add a new goal by clicking on the Add Goal button. A pop-up will appear allowing you to enter the type of goal, the state priorities addressed, a description of the goal, as well as an explanation of why the LEA has developed the goal. And then again, just be sure to click the Save button after entering the information. Next, we see the Measuring and Reporting Results tab. And so all of your metrics from the 24-25 LCAP, again, will roll over. And so here you will need to enter the year one outcome data and the current difference from baseline for each metric rolled over in each goal. And then again, you would just click on the pencil icon to enter the data. There's also a goal dropdown at the top of the first screenshot. And so this will allow you to toggle between each goal. If you need to add a new metric, you would just click on the Add button. And a pop-up will appear allowing you to enter the metric, the baseline, and a target for year 3 outcome for the new metric. And then again, just remember to click the Save button after entering information for a new metric. Next, we have the Goal Analysis tab. And so here you would just respond to the 4 goal analysis prompts for each goal. And again, there's a goal dropdown, which you can see at the top of the screenshot. And this again will allow you to toggle between each goal. And then again, remember, you have to click the save button after entering the information for each of the prompts. Here we see a screenshot of the Actions tab. And so again, all of your actions from the 24-25 LCAP will roll over. And so the only information from the actions that won't roll over is the budget or expenditure information. So you will need to edit each action to add the expenditure information. And so again, to edit an action, you just click on the pencil icon next to the action. And if you need to delete a rolled over action, you can do so by clicking on the trash can icon. And then to add a new action, you click on the Add Action button, and a pop-up will appear allowing you to enter the action title, description, time span, whether or not the action is contributing to increased or improved services, as well as the expenditure information. And then also remember, if the action is contributing to increased or improved services, other fields will appear to fill out, as you can see in that last screenshot. Okay, so next we have the Budget Summary tab, which is also within the data entry for the 2025-26 goals, actions, and budget. And so this is where LEAs will enter the projected LCFF base grant for 2025-26 and the projected LCFF supplemental and/or concentration grants amount for 25-26. The additional fields that you see on the screen will be auto-calculated based on the information entered here and in other sections of the plan. So the amounts in lines 1 through 6 will also be populated in the action tables. The last field, which is line 7, will display a yes or a no to let the LEAs know whether or not the LEA is meeting its required percentage to increase or improve services for the coming school year based on the information entered. And so it's important to note that this field will not display anywhere in the actual LCAP. It's just included here within the eLCAP system as a quick reference for LEAs. And then, although not shown on this slide, this section also includes a view-only summary of the actions and funds included in the plan. Okay, so next we see some screenshots from the plan summary and the comprehensive support and improvement sections. The plan summary section includes 3 prompts. And so the responses to the first 2 plan summary prompts will roll over from the 24-25 plan. However, the 3rd prompt, which is related to technical assistance, will not roll over. And so LEAs are able to edit the 1st and 2nd prompt as needed. Again, just be sure to click the save button after making any edits. And then LEAs that are eligible for technical assistance will need to complete the 3rd prompt. For the comprehensive support and improvement section, or otherwise known as CSI, that also includes 3 prompts. However, please note that this section will only be completed if the LEA has a school or schools identified for CSI. And none of the CSI responses will be rolled over from the 24-25 plan. We've also included a link at the bottom of the slide to the CDE website where you can find a list of the schools identified for CSI. Next, we have the Engaging Educational Partner section. And so nothing in this section will be rolled over from the 24-25 LCAP. So to add an educational partner, you would just click on the Add New Partner button, and a pop-up will appear allowing you to enter the applicable educational partner and a description of the engagement process used by the LEA. And so remember to include all required groups that the LEA must consult with when developing the LCAP. Also, not shown on the slide, there is a narrative response box to respond to the 2nd prompt in this section. And then again, you want to be sure to hit the save button in the pop-up after entering the educational partner and engagement process description, as well as after entering the response to the 2nd prompt. So here we see a screenshot of the first part of the increased or improved services section. And for the fields shown on the slide, there is only one that requires data entry. So LEAs will need to enter the projected additional 15% LCFF concentration grant amount for the 25-26 school year. The other fields that you can see here will not need to be entered. So these fields are automatically populated from the data entered in other sections of the ELCAP, such as the budget summary section and the LCFF carryover table. Continuing with the increased or improved services, here we see screenshots of the prompt for the LEA-wide and school-wide actions, as well as the prompt for the limited actions. So we're happy to share that all of the information from the 24-25 LCAP will roll over for both of these prompts or tables. And so if you need to edit any rolled over descriptions, again, you would just click on the pencil icon. And if you need to remove any of the descriptions, you would just click on the trash can icon to delete those descriptions. And then to add descriptions for LEA-wide and school-wide actions, click on the Add Descriptions button, and a pop-up will appear to enter the required information. To add descriptions for the limited actions, it's the same process. You would just click on the Add Descriptions button in that section. There is an additional prompt in the limited actions section that is not shown on the slide. However, this prompt only applies to limited actions without funding that include a planned percentage of improved services. So this prompt will most likely not apply to most LEAs. Also, for your reference, above each section, you will see a list of your LEA-wide, school-wide, and/or limited actions so that you can be sure each action is addressed within the applicable prompt. And then in addition to the prompts on the previous slide, the increased or improved services section also includes a prompt related to the additional concentration grant funding and a staff to student ratio table that must be completed if applicable to the LEA. If your LEA does not receive additional concentration grant funding, then this section does not apply. And additionally, single school LEAs, such as charter schools, are not required to complete the staff to student ratio table. However, if you are a single school LEA that receives the additional concentration grant funds, you do have to complete the prompt, just not the table. And also please note that the response to this prompt and the table will not be rolled over from the 24-25 plan. So when the plan has been completed and adopted by the local governing board, LEAs will officially submit the plan to LACO by clicking on the orange submit button located in the plan index at the top of the screen. And so for school districts, after the plan is submitted, the status in ELCAP will change from draft to submitted. Your superintendent will then receive an email request to authorize the submission of the plan. And once the superintendent has authorized the submission, the status will change to authorized, and then the formal review process will begin. For pre-reviews, please do not submit the plan in ELCAP. Instead, email the PDF of the draft plan to your assigned LCAP coordinator. And you can download a PDF of the plan by clicking on the Download PDF button that is located in the plan index. And also just please note that the pre-review process is only available for school districts. And if you need additional support using the ELCAP system, we have a user guide available on both the ELCAP system and on our Canvas resource page. And so to access this guide in the ELCAP system, you would just click on the LCAP instructions in the left menu bar. This will take you to the LCAP resource file screen where you will be able to access this user guide. And as mentioned, you can also access it on our Canvas page under LACO resources. And so the user guide is intended to provide a quick overview of the features and the functionality of the ELCAP system. In addition to the user guide, it's important to also reference the CDE LCAP template instructions to ensure that you're fully addressing the LCAP requirements and the prompts. And so remember, the prompts are for the readers and the instructions are for the LCAP writers. So if you're just responding to the prompts on the screen in the eLCAP system and not referring to the actual LCAP instructions, you may not be addressing all that's required for the prompts. So that concludes our LCAP Day 2 workshop. And so we want to give a big thank you to our colleagues in accountability and data literacy, and also business advisory services for sharing the great information on the metrics, local indicators, action tables, and budget overview for parents. And also thank you all for joining us today. Please be sure to fill out the evaluation, and if there are any additional questions, please leave them in the chat, and we will get the Q&A out to you as soon as possible with responses. Thank you and have a great rest of your day.